Hey everybody, Big Pete here again, doing the Adult Death Trooper build. In this video we're going to be going over thigh trimming. You're going to get obviously 4 sections of your thighs. You're also going to get a sniper knee. The sniper knee actually attaches to the thigh piece, and not the knee like it does on most of the other kits. So that's that guy. You're also going to get a sheet that looks like this. These are all the side pieces that are going to get attached to the thighs themselves. So what we're going to do here is we're going to trim everything out. These guys are going to get 0 return edge. So go ahead and just cut them out as you see. Leave on this section right here for this guy. It goes all the way around and then up and then over right here. This one kind of comes up and around, and this is the exact reverse of all of these. So make sure it's mainly on this one. You might not be able to determine it, but this portion right here needs to stay on for now for checking everything out. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all these out with 0 return edge. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one out as well. You'll see a decent cut line along everything for this one. So you're going to want to cut this guy right kind of where it starts to knob off right here, leaving probably about a 1/4 inch or so around. And then once you get up to the top, you can kind of just shear that off wherever you want, and then we're going to kind of fit it to the thigh that it goes to. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this guy out, and I'll show you kind of what it looks like. I'm going to just take this to the bandsaw and then the belt sander, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like when it's all cut out, so you know where to cut it out from and at. And then for the thighs, we're going to cut off most of the return edges on the thighs, leaving, which one is this one? This is going to be your left back portion of your thigh, and then I'm just going to cut it all out along the thing. Once I cut these out, I'll show you how it looks and what you need to be looking for. Alright, so I'm just cutting out the little attachments to the thigh pieces right now. Again, like I said, you don't want any return edges off this, so the easiest way to cut these out is to just give them a rough trim so that you can easily kind of get into the different places. This is that portion I was telling you, make sure you keep on when you're cutting it off the main block. As you can see, these 2 are just rough trimmed, and these 2 are good to go. So the easiest way to do it, though, is to just cut from the inside. You're going to see like there's a nice little line right here all the way around. So all you're going to do is just take your razor blade and just trace that line. You don't need to go too hard. You know, all you're doing is scoring it. So just score it all the way around. Take your time with it, obviously, like the rest of the kit. Just take your time. It's not a race. I've done this a couple times, so I may be able to do it quicker than you, but that's not a problem. Nobody's timing you. Make sure you're cutting on the right line. Alright, now that I got it, I'm going to take my, my snips or your scissors, whatever you got, and just cut at the corners. Some corners are trickier than others. I'm actually going to snip most of that one because that's a really weird corner. And of course I'm like, oh, it's easy, and I'm having a hard time. There we go. Comes right off. And do that all the way around. Parts of this you don't have to necessarily snip because it's pretty small piece. And then I'm just going to snip this portion off right here. There we go. It's the easiest way to get 0 return edges. Came out perfect. I'm going to do this same thing on the last one. and I'll show you how it all goes together. Alright, so now that I have everything nice and trimmed up, I left a really small return edge here, if any, that's on the on this section. This is the left. You can tell the left from the right because the downward curvature is going to go towards the inboard or inside portion of your leg. So this would go right here, right? So you want the downward part going towards your crotch area. So now that I have this all trimmed out, there's 0 return edge here, here, here. On these portions right here, there's nothing, no return edge, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take these, and then once you have these all nice and no returned edged out, I had you keep these portions on, and that's just so that you can tell where these go, because it makes it just a little bit easier. When you put this on with it, this little curvature is gonna follow pretty roughly the curvature of where it needs to go. So as you can see, that needs to go here. It couldn't go here because it just doesn't fit. And then if I took the other one, the curve doesn't match. This one goes straight and this one's down slanted. So that's not right, right? Can't go here, that doesn't work. So it only will fit in one place. So obviously if I took the right piece, this one goes right here. Look at that, it fits perfectly and goes the right direction. The other big fat one that I was just showing you, if I put that on here, it follows perfectly and goes. So they can only go in one place, and that's why I have you leave those on. But now that you know where they go, we're going to go ahead and cut that section off. We're going to cut it right past the, let me get some pointer to point with. So you have a lip right here. We're going to cut it on this side of the lip, not over towards here, because we want this this return edge right here. So I'm just going to take my snips and carefully snip along that direction. I'm going to take just a little bit of sandpaper and kind of have a little nub. I want to get rid of that. Okay. Right, and then when I put that up against it, it looks pretty good. I'm actually going to snip it just a little bit more, but that's what you want it to roughly look like. Thing about 10 snips is it does leave a weird mark on your plastic you're working with, just because the way that it cuts. So I'm just taking a little bit of sandpaper to it to reduce any of that. Round out a corner or two. Oh yeah, that looks great. Let's see if we can get a good view of it. There we go. Didn't quite line up perfectly on it. I mean, if it doesn't quite line up, right, you could, so that would be it on the line pretty much. It kind of overhangs here. You could always trim that back, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fake it a little bit and make sure it touches up here and touches back here on the piece that I have, and that looks fantastic. Just make sure you follow the curvature, because you don't want it cockeyed like this or up here doing this. You want it fairly level with the thigh, because of the way that it's going, you would want it parallel to the deck. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue that one on, and then this is the other side of it. That's just like the flat section. So if I line it up with the curvature, it lines perfectly there. So I'm gonna go ahead and snip off the bit that I don't want on. Take my sandpaper and fix that up real quick. Beautiful. Ain't she a beauty? Yeah. And since you have that little return edge right there, it makes it a little more seamless when you glue these on. So all I'm going to do is find my glue and my, almost out of that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and glue it on. And if you have any return edges on these things, in this portion down here, it's going to show when you try and put these on. That's why I say no return edges. Perfect. There's one. Glue. Might be a little much, but we'll make do. Yep. Make sure you got the right one. It's usually pretty helpful. I'll show you what I just did in a second. Well, I sprayed myself in the face too. So I touched my armor with super glue on it. Show you what happens. We'll hide it later, but had a little bit of super glue on my finger that was wet. That accelerator touched it. See that nice little glue mark right there? That's permanent. That's not coming off. You can try sand it, whatever. We're just gonna kind of hide that with some weathering later. Be careful about that. Super glue is not forgiving on this armor. Once it's on, it's on. I mean, these are stuck. I put them on seconds ago. So if you touch your finger into some glue and put it on your armor, you now have a permanent fingerprint of you on your armor. So be extra careful when doing that. If you have any weird edges where it doesn't quite line up, doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to notice it, but you could just take a little bit of sandpaper and just even out those sections right there. So that's one of the back portions of the thighs. The front portion of the thigh, make sure I get the right one. The downward curve follows into your crotch the same way as this. So if they bunt up together, the lower parts are together, the higher parts are together as well. So on the front portions of your thighs, I actually haven't quite trimmed this one all the way. But I did go ahead and remove all the return edging off of the sides and the bottoms, and I'm going to leave just a little return edge up here. I haven't finished this one yet, but I'm going to go ahead and give it the same kind of return edge that I had here. You don't have to put return edges. Return edges are completely up to you. It's how you prefer your armor, how you prefer it to fit, how you prefer it to look. I like some return edges on portions, and you'll find that if you have return edges and you decide to go with return edges on your kit, that you may want to trim them off later because maybe it's a binding point or it's something that snags on you, especially if you're doing a parade or something like that. You might find things in your kit that you don't really like, and everybody kind of goes through and finds these little nuances, and a lot of the time it comes from pinches from unsanded portions or return edges are a big cause of pinching. So but I'm gonna leave a little one on this guy, and then that's gonna be it for trimming and assembling these thighs. When I get into strapping, I'll show you guys how to assemble the ribbing on the side, the rubber ribbing. And that can prove we found a better way of doing it with some super glue, but we had to do an acetone wash. But I'll get more into that in a later video when I do the strapping for the thigh. All right, so actually one extra piece, I'm gonna have to insert this into the video somewhere weird. I forgot about the sniper knee that goes on the thigh. So you're gonna get it. It's gonna look a lot more rough than this. This is actually pretty good. All I did was sanded this out, trimmed it down, sanded it, gave it return edges, as you can see. The return edges are going to need to thin out here a little bit to make it look right. You can expand them again if you want to. Pretty thin right here. They start to expand again, coming back up to here, but not by much. This is a pretty small return edge. and it thins back out, so it's fairly uniform on both sides. And then what I did is, this is just a little bit of a curvature. Now, this is going to go on your right, so it's going to go on this guy, right? And it's going to go just below the little line. See a line? Go just a scooch below that. And all I did was I just sanded this guy out to the curvature of this, so that it, for the most part, meets up. It doesn't need to meet up that much. It's not that important. This is just the way I like it to look. Now, you say, how do you attach this thing? Well, it's pretty easy. I just got a piece of wood that was about the right size to fit right in this little groove right here. You can use a big piece if you want to, and just glue that sucker in there, you know, trim it down or whatever, and then screw it onto the thing. I like a little bit thinner of a wood, just so it more contours, or you know, you don't see it from the underside, which no one will see anyways, but I like to be a perfectionist. So what I did was I got my block of wood, right, and then I traced what it looks like. So I just drew a line right here, and then I cut this piece of wood down to mimic that. It's kind of a wonky shape, but so is this. And then this fits perfectly. Well, I wouldn't say perfectly, but it fits right in the little groove. And that's all you need it for. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw then another line right along here. Got a little bit of extra fuzz on this one. Gonna draw a line right along here, and then I'm going to cut that out, and then I'm going to super glue this guy in. Alright, so I got my piece all nice and trimmed out and contoured the way I want it. So as you can see, it fits in there pretty perfectly. I might have trimmed a little bit too much, but it'll be alright. I can always trim this back up a little bit if I need to. I'm just going to pop a screw in here though. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to glue this sucker in. So I'm going to put glue on the inside portion of here, a little bit on the outside. I mean, just glue this sucker up. You don't want it to fall off. Put it in the right way I have it formed. Glue myself to the wood. Don't do that. Give yourself a little accelerator. Ta-da! I'm going to stick a little bit more, I'm going to wait for it to dry for a second. I'm going to stick a little bit more glue just around the edges, just to make sure the sucker doesn't pop off. I don't want it popping off if it gets knocked into. So I'm just going to make sure this sucker is not coming out. And I touched the outside again with glue fingers. Great. More weathering. Alright, now that sucker is in there. I'm going to let that dry for a minute. But like I said, it's just going to go right here. Is that the right leg? Yes. On your right leg. It's always have a reference to look at. So yes, it is the right leg, and that is the right one. So, like I said, just right below the line right here that runs along this seam, just put it just right below that. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a screw and screw it in. You want to center this little center beam right here on this guy, about center with the cover strip right here. So, yep, I'm just going to drill a hole, drill it on. I might drop a little bit of glue in between just to make sure that it stays and doesn't go anywhere. But that's it. There it is. I put 2 screws in it just to make sure it didn't wobble back and forth. You could always put one and glue it, or you could just glue it. I put a couple screws. Works perfect. Looks fantastic. I love the way this looks. So that's it. That's going to be it for rough trimming. Well, actually trimming and fitting and gluing and everything. So go ahead and give me a follow if you're not following the channel already. I'll put a link to 850 Armor Works down below if you're interested in any of the products. Go go ahead and check out any of the other videos I have. I've been uploading quite a bit of videos recently, so if you like what I'm doing, go ahead and check those out as well. But until next time, this is Big Pete again, and y'all take it easy.